So we're going to sort of wrap up one of the subjects which we've been talking about until now, which is about Amolek, and go on to the next subject. But before we complete that, I just want to add or conclude that we attributed three things to Amolek. One is suffix, doubt. The gematria of the word Amolek is 240, which is the same as the word doubt. And that means Amolek is that kind of yitzhara that throws doubt into our minds. The second thing is Amolek is coldness. Coldness in this context means not to be, even if you are observing Torah mitzvahs, but not to have that fire, that enthusiasm, the passion. And that's really the beginning of the sliding down the sliding slope. And that's also Amolek. And the third thing was Amolek is Yeshus. Amolek is at the core of Amolek is the desire to establish its own independent identity, independent of Hashem. And therefore, Amolek is anti-Hashem, denies Hashem, and wants to do everything within its power that Hashem's name should not be present, known in the world. So maybe a way of breaking this up is that Yeshus is the cause. That's the cause why things are happening. Doubt and coldness are the symptoms. So when we see doubt and coldness, we know that's Amolek. And what's at the root of it is this Yeshus. That's one thing. The second thing is to conclude about, okay, how do we get rid of Amolek? So last week, we spoke about the fact that the only way to get rid of Amolek is by accessing something in Kedusha that would be considered the counterpart of Amolek. And being that Amolek is really the essence of Klippa. Remember, we explained it's not one of the seven nations. It's sort of deeper than that in the realm of Klippa. And therefore, it will never be able to be elevated or transformed because this is a Klippa that's directly opposing godliness. So it's sort of the essence of Klippa. The only way to counteract that is by accessing the essence of Kedusha. The essence of Kedusha is Rashab, who has the Yechida, the deepest part of the neshama, most revealed. So that's why in the times of Mitzrayim, who was the one that fought Amolek? Shmuel Hanavi, who was the one that fought Amolek? It was the king, Shaul HaMelech. And in the times of Purim, who was the one that fought Amolek? It was Mordechai. And one of the things it says in the Rambam, what's going to happen when Moshiach comes, will be three things. And one of them is to finally eliminate Amolek. That's going to be one of the things that Moshiach has to accomplish. So therefore, by us connecting to that neshama, which is the essence of Kedusha, that gives us the power to overcome the Amolek on a personal level. There's one more thing that's connected to that. On the list that I gave you, it is number 34. Number 34 is Kabbalah's oil. Kabbalah's oil is a term that's very common in Chassidus and Torah in general, but specifically in Chassidus, and literally means accepting the yoke, which means a yoke is what you put on an animal when he has to plow the field. You don't want him to go to the right or the left. He should be focused on what he's supposed to do. Put something on him, and that, in a sense, keeps him going to do what he needs to do. Accepting the yoke spiritually means that it's the unconditional acceptance, which is not dependent on logic. It's not based on logic. It's just an acceptance and a commitment to connect to Hashem, the Kabbalah soul. And that's what it means. Usually you use the term that a soldier represents Kabbalah Soil. A soldier in an army, when he gets a command, doesn't say to the commander, oh, that's very interesting. So why exactly is this necessary? When a soldier gets a command, he's supposed to follow the command immediately. And in fact, the commander, when he gets a command from his superior, he's supposed to follow his thing immediately. The whole structure of an army is based on Kabbalah Soil. In fact, Chassidim used to say, how come a soldier has a head altogether? So he has what to hang his rifle on. Otherwise, he wouldn't be able to hang his rifle if he had no head. So in other words, it means to say that the seichel is not what you use in an army. Of course, you need to use brains to know where to shoot, how to shoot. But in terms of fulfilling the command, it's supposed to be just Kabbalah Soil. In fact, it's brought down that even when a person sleeps, a soldier, even when he's sleeping like a soldier, which means that he's so trained to do what he has to do that if he wakes up in the middle of the night, he would immediately go right into what it is that he needs to do. In fact, a friend of mine once said that in yeshiva, he had a roommate who went through the army, and the roommate was sleeping, and he came in the middle of the night, he made some noise, and all of a sudden, the roommate woke, but they didn't just wake up. Within seconds, the roommate woke up, and it was sort of, in his sleep, he was on top of him, ready to strike him. Of course, he realized that he's not in the army now, he's in his room in yeshiva, and this is his friend, but it was almost like a natural reflex. And because it's so edged in his training that that's the point that a Kabbalah Soil is something which is beyond logic. It's just a commitment that's deeper than logic. Once a chassid was traveling, and we know how the Rashab said, whatever you see, you can learn something from it, from serving Hashem. So the chassid said that he learned from some Russian soldiers how you're supposed to serve Hashem. He was traveling and he passed by a fort and he saw them flogging one of the soldiers. Obviously, he was being punished for something that he did. I guess he must have been talking to someone who was connected to the army, and he asked him, like, what was his crime that he did? And he said that it was his night to be on guard, and it was very cold outside, and his feet froze. His legs froze. Took him to the hospital, took care of him, but then when he came back, they flogged him for that. And of course, the question is, what do you want from the guy? Poor guy, he was freezing. So they said to him, when they flogged him, they said, if you would have remembered the oath that you gave to the king, that you're going to be loyal to him, that would have warmed you up and your feet shouldn't have frozen. So he said he learned from this what it means to have Kabbalah Soil. I know I have to get the job done. And how does this relate to Amolek? Because the way Amolek cools us off and the way Amolek throws in doubt is not just doubt, it's logical. He starts asking questions, looking for explanations. Like we gave the example the other day that if Amolek would be watching Kriyas Yamsuf, if a person be watching Kriyas Yamsuf and the Amolek in him would be disturbing him, it would hear a voice that would say, what are you getting so excited about Hashem's miracle? Hashem is infinite, he created heaven and earth, and he did so much great things. So what are you making such a big deal about the fact that the water split? Big deal. It makes a lot of sense. It makes so much sense that when we hear it, you start thinking, yeah, right. What's the argument against it? So Amolek, as we said before, you can't argue with him because every line of logic you're going to give him, he'll give you a line of logic which is the opposite. And the only way to deal with Amolek is by totally dismissing him and just unconditional commitment, loyalty to Hashem, Kabbalah Soil. So one of the things that helps sort of break the Amolek in me is doing things in Torah mitzvahs which I don't necessarily understand, like other things which I do understand, and I do them with Kabbalah Soil. When I do something just because this is what I was told to do, that helps make a dent and eventually break the power of Amolek within me. Okay, so I want to go to another subject here. Could be you've learned the Sikha, but I think I still would like to go over briefly. And that is number 7. Number 7 says, because they enjoyed the feast of that wicked person. What is this referring to? This is a quote from Gemara. The Gemara says, what happened in the times of Haman was not just because there was a wicked person, but we know that if there's a decree down here, there must be a decree up there in the heavenly courts. Just like now, whatever is going on now down here is obviously because there's some sort of decree in the heavenly court. And that's what we need to look for. How can we cancel that decree? So the Gemara raises the question, what was the reason why the Yidden deserved this kind of a punishment? We're not talking about punishment. It's worse than punishment. This was a decree that every man, woman, and child would chas v'shalom be wiped out. That means they must have done something so severe that warranted such a reaction. What was it? There's one opinion because they ate tray food. So it doesn't say in the Torah that we're eating tray food, it's death penalty. It's a negative thing. It's violating Torah, but it doesn't warrant such a penalty. That we only find that Avodah Zarah. So there's actually an opinion that they bowed down. There was an image of the king of Nebuchadnezzar, and they bowed down to the image. So those who bowed down to the image, I can understand. Not every single Jew did that. And of course, there are other reasons that are brought down. And if you look at each reason separately, it was maybe a bad thing. One of the reasons given is, you probably learned this in class, is because they took the vessels of the Beis HaMikdash and he showed them off. One of the reasons why Achashverosh made this big feast was because of the same reason that the Jews assimilated. It was 70 years since the Beis HaMikdash was destroyed. According to their calculation, the Yidden should have been redeemed, according to the prophecies. They weren't. So that meant that the prophecies, in their mind, it meant the prophecies are not going to be fulfilled. And the Jews will remain the subjects of this king forever. So he was celebrating. And one of the ways he celebrated was he took the vessels that they stole from the Beis HaMikdash, took them out by the feast, and basically was boasting with and showing, here are the beautiful gold and silver vessels from the Beis HaMikdash. That is something so painful for a Jew shouldn't even want to be there. The fact that the Jews were present in such a feast, where they were showing off that they conquered the vessel of the Beis HaMikdash, that is, like, in a sense, the height of not loyalty to Hashem. So the Gemara says, okay, so the Jews who lived in, that's what it's one of the reasons given. So the Jews who lived in Shushan and they attended the feast, we can understand. But this was the decree on all Jews in the whole country, everywhere. So there's a very beautiful sikha where the Rebbe explains this. There's a lot of details to this, but I'll just give the main thrust of the sikha. And the main thrust of the sikha is as follows. Okay, so now, before we go to that, here's one of the reasons that are given, amongst the many reasons, because they enjoyed the feast of that Rasha. And this reason seems to be the most shocking, the most puzzling. It doesn't say they ate treif. They said because they enjoyed being by the Suda of that wicked person. So, just because they enjoyed being by the feast, that warrants such a punishment. How does that make sense? It doesn't mention that they bowed to Avodah Zarah, that they ate treif. I'm sure you also know there's an opinion that says they didn't eat treif, that Achashverosh allowed the Jews to eat kosher food, they would eat other food. So just the fact that they enjoyed being there, so what? So this is the Rebbe's answer, that the truth is like this. Al pi teva, according to the natural order, there's no way that Jews can exist in this world. Why? Because there's a metaphor that the Gemara uses to describe our sort of status in the world, is like kibsa achas ben shivim ze'evim. We're like one sheep that's being surrounded by 70 wolves. Now, what are the chances that there's one sheep and there's 70 wolves that want to attack her, what are the chances that this sheep and this lamb should survive? Every scientist will tell you zero. Zero. I mean, we find that one wolf can attack a whole herd of sheep, but 70 wolves attacking one sheep, that's our situation. 70 nations, and they're all trying to destroy us, eliminate us. And nevertheless, here we are. And of course, adding to the fact that other nations who are so much more powerful, so much more in numbers, and yet they're all gone. We only know about them because of the history books. And here Yidden are going on, so it's not apitava. That means that even though Hashem supervises everything in the world, and Hashem is the one who leads everything, makes everything happen in the natural order, but regarding our existence, our very existence on a daily basis is not from Teva. It's Hashem's supernatural supervision upon us that allows us to live in these unusual, unnatural circumstances. This in itself depends on us. In other words, if a Yid believes that our existence is from Hashem, and that's really where we get everything from, and that's what our survival depends on, then that in itself makes us a vessel to receive from Hashem, who is supernatural, above nature. But if a Yid, chas v'sholem, doesn't accept that and starts seeing themselves, they perceive themselves that we are here and we survive just like everybody else survives because of the natural reasons that keep us going. In that case, for example, at that time, the Yidden assimilated, and the reason why they assimilated was because they didn't connect to Hashem the way they should have. And not only that, but they saw themselves that their existence in this country, in all the countries, is because of because Achashverosh was being gracious to them, was being kind to them, and they sort of attributed it to Achashverosh. In other words, there was a natural reason why all this is happening. And they denied the fact that there's something which is above nature, supernatural, that's the real reason why they're able to survive and thrive in a time in this world. Once they had that perception, then Hashem actually took away that supernatural hashgacha that he has upon them. And that means that now they're being sort of governed and led by the natural order. By the natural order, they have no way that they can exist because they're one sheep surrounded by 70 wolves. In other words, in a certain sense, it wasn't even a punishment. It was a natural consequences of their own distorted beliefs. That because they didn't believe in Hashem, who's above nature, they believed. Where do we see that they believed that their existence because of nature? Because they were thrilled to be by Achashverosh's Suda. In other words, really to be by this male, which was, we know all the sort of disgusting things that were going on by that male. What is a Jew doing there in the first place? And not only that they were there, but this is, if you look at the words again, nana, because they enjoyed being there. In other words, they were thrilled that the king Achashverosh, who was this mighty king, invited them to the meal. Did you hear the news? I was invited to this meal that Achashverosh is making. And to them, this was a thrill. This means this was something which gave them a good feeling about themselves. Why? Because they attributed their, whatever they have in their existence is because of the king. He's the one that's being kind to us. And therefore, we have to sort of be loyal to him. And therefore, we have to do the things that he asks us to do. But once you look at Achashverosh, that he's sort of the source of my sustenance, then I'm thrilled that this great king, who's a king over so many countries, is inviting me to his party. So in other words, it's not because they enjoyed the Suda, that's why this happened. Enjoying the Suda expressed where their belief was, that they were relying on nature, and they believed that their existence comes from nature and through nature. So it's as if, to put it this way, there are two realms. One is above nature and one is in nature. If we go to the place that's above nature, we can exist. If we lower ourselves and go into the realm which is nature, we can't exist. In that realm, we can't exist because it's 70 against 1. What happens is, this is the part that's very fundamental in Chassidus, that the way things are in actuality is dependent on the way we perceive them. So if I perceive myself, or we perceive ourselves as above nature, connected to Hashem, who is above nature, then we become above nature, and we connect to that, and we receive our sustenance from that place. But if I don't see that, I deny that, and I see myself in the realm of nature like everybody else, and therefore I give all this, I feel indebted, not to Hashem, but indebted to Achashverosh, then I am sort of inserting myself, I'm lowering myself from this place into the place of nature. Once you go into the place of nature, then things happen. I mean, the mashal that I think in my mind, it's a very, different kind of mashal, but just to have something to hold on to, is that if you have to go from one place to another place, and there's a river in between, and you have to go into the river and swim. Now, in this river, there are all sorts of dangerous things in the water. There are crocodiles, there are whales, there are sharks, everything which is really dangerous. So to go from there to there, it's almost impossible to survive. And it's not that a shark comes by once in 3 months. They're there constantly. So it means that whoever goes through this water is putting his life on the line. How do I get across? Some comes along and says, I have a helicopter. Get into my helicopter, we'll go across. I'm a chaya. I don't have to know how to swim. I don't need any weapons. I don't need anything to protect me. I just go into the helicopter, go right over on the other side with ease. There's absolutely no effort at all. What if the person in the helicopter says, no, I want to go through the water? Go through the water, you have to deal with what's in the water. And that's basically, we are being carried by Hashem in a way which is above nature, our very existence. But when Yidden don't recognize that or deny that, they, for the natural circumstance, are placed that are pretendable, we weren't able to exist. That's what it means, shenanu, because they enjoyed. In other words, the fact that they were thrilled to be by that feast, the fact they were thrilled that someone like Hashverosh invited them was an indication that they attributed and they were indebted to Hashverosh, not really to Hashem. So of course this applies to us on a personal level as well, that a person has to recognize that Hashem is above nature, and he leads me personally in a way which is Hashem leads in a way which is above nature. If a person fails to realize that, and everything that they do, they calculate, but according to nature, this could be, this can be, and therefore they're depressed or they're sad or they're worried because they're looking at everything from the natural way. Unfortunately, by doing that, I'm sort of lowering myself into the realm of nature, and I'm allowing nature to lead me in the natural order. And in the natural order, there's trouble.
Isn't that what Hashem wants, though, for us to be in the natural order?
Right, to be in the natural order, but to trust in Hashem, that's above nature. Now, we believe that the natural order is also run by Hashem. But when a person trusts in nature, that's a different story. In other words, they were supposed to, according to Torah, give honor to Achashverosh, but reluctantly, because he's the king, we have to give him honor. The fact that they enjoyed and they were thrilled means that they saw this as he is the source. You know, according to halacha, if someone does a favor for me, I'm supposed to say thank you. So my landlord is being nice to me, my employer is being nice to me, I should say thank you. But I still have to realize that whatever I get is really from Hashem, and they're just a shliach. But because they have the free choice, I'm thanking them for choosing the good thing. But I recognize it's from Hashem. I'm not depending on them. My life doesn't depend on them. And that will determine how I'll feel, whether I'll be filled with anxiety, or I'll be depressed about things, or if I trust in Hashem, then I won't. Misunderstood? Any questions on what I just said?
Well, I have one question. That applies to all the Jews on all the other provinces too, or they got punished for different?
No, it appears to be that even though they were the ones who were by the Suda, but that was sort of a reflection of what was the attitude of the Jews in that generation.
It's just interesting because I think it's true in every majority, maybe.
Well, that's why we have to keep learning Torah in general, and Chassidus in particular, to have the right perspective. Because Al Pi Teva, we're affected by the way we see things, the way our eyes see things. That's just the way it is. Human nature is, when I see something, that to me seems to be the reality. And the other thing is not the same reality. Even though I know it and I understand it, it's not the same. So by learning, in Chassidus, there's a term, you can see things with the eyes of the mind. There's a story with a Maggid Mizrich that his students once said to him, Rebbe, we would like you to show us Eliyahu Hanavi. One time. He said, okay, we'll come a time. One day he called them in and he said, tomorrow there's going to be a big party here. And the nobleman here is going to be celebrating his birthday. A lot of other noblemen are going to come to join. They're going to make a parade of fancy chariots you're going to see. And these are all noblemen coming to celebrate his birthday. The second wagon, the nobleman sitting there, is Eliyahu Hanavi. Okay? In other words, he's going to look like a nobleman, but really he's Eliyahu Hanavi. So they go out there, and it's true, the next day there's a big party, and all the noblemen are traveling. They come into the city, and they're going towards the nobleman's palace or castle, whatever he had. And they look at the second wagon at the nobleman. No, this can't be. The guy looked like a typical Polish nobleman, as coarse as could be, with the big whiskers, and very coarse face. Something is not right. But the other one, but the Rebbe said he's Eliyahu Hanavi. But it just can't be. Back and forth. Before they had a chance, he already went into the castle. They missed him. 2 hours. It's over. Now they looked even more refined after the party, you can imagine. And now they're on the way out. Probably the procession was the same order. So there he is again, looking even more worse than before. Face was red, probably from all the drinking or whatever. And they said, okay, let's approach him. And they walk over to him and they say in Polish, could we go on your wagon? And he screams at him and says, get away from here. I don't take any fools on my wagon. So they ran away. A nobleman, you don't start up with noblemen. So something went wrong. They didn't follow the Rebbe's instructions. They came back to the Maggid and they told him what happened. So the Maggid said to them, so you speak to Eliyahu Hanavi in Polish? Eliyahu Hanavi is speaking Polish? It's a Polish nobleman. It's supposed to be Eliyahu Hanavi, but their eyes see a Polish nobleman, so they spoke Polish. What they should have said is, Shalom Aleichem, Meir Rabbi, welcome, my dear Rebbe, the Eliyahu Hanavi, please give us the opportunity to sit on your wagon, and say it in Hebrew. So basically what we see from this is that when you see something with your eye, you go by that, and to see with the eyes of the mind requires more avodah, but you could. You could see things with the eyes of your mind, that it should become as reality as seeing it with the eyes of flesh. So that's what we have to work on. Yes?
Why don't we have a class on Eliyahu? Like, what's the difference between for Eliyahu?
That's a good question. Question is, we should have a class on understanding Eliyahu Hanavi, what his role is, because we know Moshiach is coming, Eliyahu Hanavi is coming. What's his role? What's Moshiach's role? So next time we have Moshiach, we'll bring it up in class. I just want to bring that you brought it up. I just want to say it's an interesting observation that the Moshe is Mem and Aaron is. Who are the two people who brought the miracle in Purim? Mordechai is Mem. Who are the people that are going to take us out of Golas? Moshiach. So that's why he has to be there. He has to have the olive there. Okay. So the next thing I want to talk about The Gemara says that everything has to be hinted in the Torah. So therefore, Haman is found in the Torah, Mordechai is found in the Torah, Esther is found in the Torah. Where are they in the Torah? So in the booklet that I gave out to you, you could see, let's look at page number 5 first. It's the Parsha of Kisisa, which is actually next week's Parsha. And it talks about the Ketores, about the incense. If you look at page number 5, you see the words are underlined, and you should take incense. It's called Mar Derer. That's the incense in Hebrew. Look at the side, which is the Targum, the Aramaic. Meira Dachya. So the Gemara says Meira Dachya is really the same letters as Mordechai. So Mordechai is found in the Torah. Where's Haman in the Torah? Look at the next page. Number 6. When Adam and Chava ate from the tree, Hashem said to them, did you eat from this tree? So it says, Hamin ha'etz hazeh, did you eat from this tree that I commanded you not to eat? The word Hamin are the same letters as the word Haman. So Haman is also in the Torah. Where's Esther? So let's go back to page 4. This is a chapter in the Torah where it talks about that if the Yidden will not keep Torah mitzvahs, Hashem will bring exile and he'll hide from us. So it says, Vanechi haster aster pana b'yemahu. I will hide my face on that day. I'll call her off all those negative things that unfortunately that were done. And like Rashi says, not Chas v'Shalom Hashem will really hide his face. I mean, it'll be as if he's hiding his face, but of course he'll be there and he'll be taking care of us. But here, Esther is the same letters as Esther. So why is Esther connected to this word which means concealment and hiding? So the answer is because in the times of Purim, Hashem was hiding from us in the most severe times, that even though in Golus in general Hashem hides from the Jewish people, but there were different stages in Golus, different eras in Golus. There was never an era in Golus like Purim, where every single Jew, man, woman, and child, there was a decree to Chas v'Shalom, they should be eliminated. So it was the worst concealment. In fact, this is another reason why is it that the Megillah, which is one of the books of Torah, is the only single book in the entire Torah that doesn't have Hashem's name? How's it possible for a book of Torah not to have Hashem's name? What? What?
It's a story that was made up without Hashem.
What does that mean? Oh, okay. So if you don't know, I surely don't know. What? So one of the reasons that are given for that is because Hashem was hidden in the time of Purim. Hidden in such a severe way, such a strong way, therefore his name is not there. This is also one of the reasons why it's a custom to dress up and in some sort of a costume and hide your identity on Purim. Why only Purim? Why do we celebrate in such a strange way? Because that's also sort of where we're playing out what Hashem did, that he hid from us in the times of Purim. And so another reason why Purim is a yontif, if it's such a big yontif. On the other hand, that you're prohibited to do something because of this in some way or another. So it's all because on this day Hashem was hidden, so everything is sort of hidden. But the question is, why should we do things to commemorate that there was such a decree that Hashem was hidden from us, but at the end of the day, Hashem revealed himself, a miracle. So why are we putting so much of an emphasis on the fact that he was hidden? So the answer is, and we touched on this before because it was relevant to the Mamar Atat Tzava, but we'll go into it again a little bit more detail. The answer is that it's not only because Hashem in a hidden way. In other words, it's not just because of the decree. It's because the miracle was in a hidden way. In Mitzrayim, the miracle was in a revealed way. When the other miracles happen in the other times of Galus, and over here, as we mentioned last time, according to the story of Purim in the Megillah, there's nothing that happened that was supernatural. What happened was a chain of events that were incredible, that here, as a result of that, Mordechai had his connection to the palace. Then Hashem arranged that two people tried to poison the king, and Mordechai saved their life. And as a result of that, the king fell indebted to Mordechai. And then eventually, when Haman came around, through Esther and through Mordechai, we were saved. So it's an incredible chain of events that led to redemption. But there was nothing that happened there that was like splitting of the sea, or like Avraham Avinu being in a fire and not being burned, or like Daniel being thrown into a den of lions and not being. So even though it was a nest, but the nest was hidden. And because the nest was hidden, therefore Hashem's name is hidden, and therefore we do all the things that are related to hiding. And Hashem's name is that in the Megillah and so on. But then the question is, on the surface, it seems the fact that Hashem's name is hidden, or I mean that the miracle was in this hidden way, means it's not such an open, fascinating, phenomenal miracle like the ones that are open miracles. Yet the Gemara says, and look at number 8, this is a famous quote, Kol hamoedim b'teilim, all the holidays in the future when Moshiach comes will be bottled, they'll be sort of canceled. Achutz mi Purim. The only one which will not be is Purim. And that's strange, which is, there was no open miracle, and even Hanukkah was an open miracle. Because Hanukkah says that the people who fought the huge, mighty army of the Greeks, of Yudah Maccabee, that's miraculous. No way, Al Pi Teva, that can happen. So that was an open miracle. And Purim, which is not an open miracle, only there it's sort of Hashgacha Pratis, and yet when Mashiach will come, Purim will be the only one that'll be there. But the truth is, aren't one of the most basic principles about Mashiach is that he won't change the Torah. So we'll have Pesach, we'll have Shavuos, and we'll have all the Yom Tovim. How can you say that all the Yom Tovim will become null and void when Mashiach comes? It's part of Torah, and Torah is eternal. What? Yeah.
So the other we celebrated, but when Moshiach comes, in such a huge way, seeing as if the other half have been pale in comparison to the way we celebrate Purim.
Got it for the wrong station, but on the right track.
Okay, you can take me.
I'll still tell you that because what you're saying is number 9 on the list. We'll need more time to explain it, but this is a quote from Gemara Shraga B'Tira Maya Hanilei. Not Purim. It says that every Yom Pesach, Shavuos, say that Hashem is revealed in the world, right? The light of Hashem that is revealed in the world on Pesach, Shavuos, Sukkot, and Christos, and all these days, when Mashiach will come, will be so much greater, infinitely greater than what's shining now, that the Yontif, the way we know it now, when Mashiach comes. No, they will be celebrated. But I'm saying that it means that the spirituality that we experience on Pesach, Shavuos, and Sukkot, all these days now, will be will lose itself in the presence of something so much greater that'll be revealed on Pesach, on Shavuos, on Sukkot. We'll be doing all the mitzvahs, but spiritually what will be revealed to us will be so much greater, infinitely greater, that everything now is like nothing compared to that. Yeah.
So in terms of the revelation of the energy of the light that's coming down for all these young children, it's like
natural way, kind of like in terms of the going down, coming in an natural way?
No, it means in a spiritual way.
Yeah. But is it following the natural order?
We're not talking about how it's going to affect the natural order. We're talking about what we're going to feel and see spiritually when this Yontif comes. Like right now, we're not on that level, but let's say tzaddikim, they do experience and they see the light of Hashem that's shining now. When Moshiach will come, the light that they're going to see, not they, all of us will then be different. The light that we're going to see shining on Pesach will be so brilliant and so phenomenal that the light of Pesach that's shining today will be lost in the presence of that bigger light. And that's what these words mean. I will explain it more tomorrow. Number 9, the Gemara says, why do we search for chametz only at night? Why can't we search by day? Take a candle and look by day. You have both. No, this candle in the middle of the day, Maya accomplishes nothing. In other words, a small little flame in the presence of the sunlight is like insignificant, which means if you take a candle and you light a fire, a flame in the middle of the day, when the sun is shining, you can hardly even see that there's a flame there. It surely doesn't give any light, doesn't add anything. So that means when there's a bigger light and a small light, the bigger light is so huge that the smaller light loses its significance in the presence of the bigger light. It's as if it doesn't exist. So the light of Yontif, the way we know it now, in the presence of the way we'll know it and understand it when Mashiach comes, is insignificant. I mean, it's hard for us to imagine this, but try to think of it the way, let's say, a 3-year-old talks about things. And the way this 3-year-old will understand the same thing in 20 years from now. It's a joke. If he understands what it means, the value of a father, of a mother, husband and wife, these are concepts that he might say the words, but what he understands is nothing compared to the way he'll understand this when he becomes older. So the knowledge of a child is insignificant to the knowledge that you have when you become an adult. In fact, it says that there's a pasuk in Koheles, it says that everything is vanity. So it says in the Medrash, if it wouldn't say in the Medrash, it would almost be not even allowed to speak this way. But it says in the Medrash, the Torah, the way we know it now, is like hevel. It's like vanity compared to the Torah, where they will understand it when Mashiach will come. And tomorrow, if you remind me, I'll give you an example how that could be. One way, without any depth, or with depth, then you see it a whole different way. Hey, have a tzlachah day, everybody.